Most people will watch this video and feel something shift in the first 5 minutes, and then they'll close the app, go back to their life, and change absolutely nothing. That's not an insult. That's just what happens when people hear truth without being ready to act on it. So, before we start, I want to ask you for one thing. Don't just listen to these 5 truths. Sit with them. Some of them are going to feel uncomfortable, maybe even a little insulting. Good. That's how you know they're real. The Stoics were never in the business of making people feel good. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, none of them were trying to comfort you. They were trying to free you. And sometimes freedom feels like a punch to the chest before it feels like relief. These are 5 harsh Stoic truths, things people need to hear, especially because they don't want to hear them. Let's begin. Truth number 1, nobody is coming to save you. Let's start with the one that hurts the most, because once this lands properly, everything else gets easier to accept. Nobody is coming to save you. Not your parents, not a mentor, not a lucky break, not the right relationship, the right job, or the right circumstances finally lining up. Nobody is coming. It is 100%, entirely, completely up to you. I want you to really hear that, because most people nod along to this idea without letting it actually restructure how they think. They say, yeah, I know, you have to work hard. And then they go right back to waiting. Waiting for motivation. Waiting for the timing to be right. Waiting for someone to notice their potential and hand them an opportunity. Here's what the Stoics understood that most people miss entirely. Epictetus divided the entire world into 2 categories: things within your control and things outside of it. And here is the part people conveniently skip over. Other people's recognition of your effort, their willingness to help you, their belief in your potential. All of that falls into the category of things outside your control. You cannot control whether someone notices you. You cannot control whether someone gives you a chance. You cannot control whether the world is fair to you. What you can control is whether you show up anyway. Whether you do the work, regardless of whether anyone is watching. Whether you build the skill, send the application, make the call, finish the project, without permission, without applause, without guarantee. This is the part that stings. Nobody cares about your potential the way you do. Nobody is tracking your effort the way you imagine they are. Your boss is not quietly building a mental file of how hard you've been trying. Your family is not constantly evaluating whether you deserve more support. People are busy living their own lives, solving their own problems, managing their own disappointments. They are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. This sounds bleak. It's actually the opposite. Because once you stop expecting to be rescued, noticed, or rewarded by external forces, you stop outsourcing your success to circumstances you cannot control. And that is the moment real change becomes possible. Marcus Aurelius ran the most powerful empire on earth, and he still wrote to himself constantly about doing the work without expecting thanks. He said that a person who does a good deed and then needs recognition for it has missed the point entirely. The deed itself was supposed to be the reward. Apply that same logic to your own effort. You show up because that's who you've decided to be, not because someone is going to clap. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for someone to believe in you before you believe in yourself. Stop waiting for the right moment, because the right moment is a myth designed to let you feel productive while doing nothing. Nobody is coming, so you go. Today. Not when you feel ready, because readiness is also outside your control, and waiting for it is just another form of waiting to be saved. This is genuinely freeing once it sinks in. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's attention, approval, or timing. Your success becomes entirely a function of your own behavior, and that means it's finally, completely in your hands. Truth number 2. Your feelings are not facts. Here's the second truth, and this one trips up almost everyone in the modern world because we live in a culture that has quietly trained people to treat their emotional reactions as evidence. You feel anxious about a conversation, so you assume it's going to go badly. You feel insecure around someone, so you assume they think less of you. You feel like giving up, so you assume the goal is no longer worth pursuing. None of these feelings are facts. They are interpretations. And the Stoics built an entire philosophy around this single distinction. Epictetus said it as clearly as it can be said. It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about those events. The event is neutral. Your interpretation is where the suffering gets created. Someone doesn't respond to your text for 6 hours. That is a neutral fact. The story you tell yourself about what that means. That they're upset with you. That you said something wrong. That the relationship is in trouble. That's not a fact. That's a feeling dressed up as certainty. Here's where this gets harsh. Most people make major life decisions based on temporary emotional states. They quit jobs in a moment of frustration. They end relationships in a moment of hurt. They give up on goals in a moment of doubt. And then, weeks or months later, when the feeling has passed, they look back and realize the feeling lied to them. The circumstances weren't actually as dire as the emotion made them feel in the moment. This doesn't mean suppress your emotions or pretend you don't feel them. The Stoics were not about emotional numbness. They were about creating a gap, a pause, between the feeling and the action. Marcus Aurelius described this practice constantly in his private writings. When something disturbed him, his first move was never to react. It was to ask, is this actually a problem? Or is this just my judgment about the situation? Is this thing actually harming me? Or am I choosing to be harmed by my interpretation of it? Practically, here's what this looks like. The next time you feel a strong emotional pull toward a decision, anger telling you to send that message, anxiety telling you to avoid that opportunity, insecurity telling you to shrink yourself in a room. Pause. Ask yourself what's actually true here. Separate from what you're feeling. Often you'll find the feeling is real, but the conclusion you've attached to it is not. This is one of the harshest truths, because it removes a comfortable excuse. You can't keep treating your anxiety as proof that something bad will happen. You can't keep treating your insecurity as proof that you're inadequate. You can't keep treating your doubt as proof that you should quit. Your feelings are data about your internal state, not verdicts about external reality. Learn the difference, and you take back enormous control over your decisions. Truth number 3. Discipline will always feel worse than comfort in the moment. Here's a truth that nobody wants to accept, because it removes the fantasy that one day discipline will start to feel easy and natural, and you'll finally stop having to fight for it. It won't. Discipline does not become comfortable. What changes is your relationship to the discomfort, but the discomfort itself never fully disappears. The version of you that wakes up early, that does the hard task first, that has the difficult conversation, that says no to the easier option, that version of you is, in almost every single moment of choice, going to feel a pull toward the easier path. Every time. This surprises people because the self-improvement world has sold an idea that eventually discipline turns into desire, that if you just build the habit long enough, you'll wake up one day actually wanting the cold shower, actually craving the workout, actually excited about the hard conversation. Sometimes in small ways that happens. But mostly, what actually happens is something different and more honest. You simply get better at acting despite the resistance, not at eliminating it. The Stoics never promised an absence of difficulty. They promised the capacity to act rightly in spite of it. Seneca wrote about deliberately practicing hardship, going without comforts, exposing himself to discomfort on purpose, specifically because he understood that the feeling of difficulty was never going away. The goal was never to make hardship feel good. The goal was to make hardship survivable, manageable, even unremarkable through repeated exposure. Here's the harsh part. If you are waiting to feel motivated before you act with discipline, you are going to wait your entire life. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable, as we just covered. Discipline, properly understood, is the act of doing the right thing, specifically when you don't feel like it. The moment it starts to feel easy and automatic, it's not really discipline anymore, it's just habit, which is wonderful. But you'll find a new edge, a new area of resistance, almost immediately. Growth keeps moving the goalposts. There is always a next hard thing. This means you have to stop expecting the discomfort to end as a precondition for action. You act now, uncomfortable, unmotivated, and unsure. And you keep acting that way, indefinitely, because that is simply what a disciplined life looks like from the inside. It is not a sequence of triumphant, motivated mornings. It is a long string of ordinary mornings where you did the hard thing anyway, often while feeling nothing close to inspired. Accept this, and something interesting happens. You stop being surprised and discouraged by resistance. You stop interpreting the difficulty of discipline as a sign you're doing something wrong, or that you're not cut out for this, or that something has gone broken in your motivation. You start to understand that the discomfort is not a malfunction. It is simply the price of admission every single time for the rest of your life. Pay it without complaint, and you'll outperform almost everyone around you who is still waiting to feel ready. Truth number 4. Most of your suffering is self-inflicted. This is the truth that tends to provoke the most resistance because it can sound like blame. It is not blame. It is, if you let it be, an enormous relief. Here it is, plainly. A significant amount of the suffering you experience day to day is not caused by your circumstances. It is caused by your own mind, your expectations, your comparisons, your imagined futures, your replayed pasts. The Stoics were relentless about this distinction because it is the single most liberating idea in the entire philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very often we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how much of your stress in the last month came from things that actually happened to you, versus things you imagined happening, worried about happening, or relived from the past long after they were over. Most people, when they're honest, find that the majority of their suffering came from their own mental rehearsal of problems, not the problems themselves. You replay an embarrassing moment from years ago, and your body responds as if it's happening right now. You imagine a conversation going badly before it's even occurred, and you feel the anxiety of that imagined failure in your chest today. You compare your current life to some other version of your life that doesn't exist, and you generate genuine grief over a loss that never actually happened. This is not weakness. This is simply how the untrained mind operates, but it is also almost entirely optional once you see it clearly. Here's the harsh part people don't want to accept. If most of your suffering is generated internally, then most of your relief is also available internally. And that means you can no longer fully blame your circumstances, your past, or other people for the bulk of your distress. That's uncomfortable because blaming external things feels better in the moment than taking responsibility for your own mental patterns. It feels better to say, "My life is hard because of what happened to me," than to say, "I am extending my own pain by replaying it daily." The Stoic practice here is not pretending bad things didn't happen or that pain isn't real. It's catching yourself in the act of generating additional unnecessary suffering on top of whatever real difficulty exists and refusing to add fuel to that fire. When you notice yourself spiraling into an imagined future or a replayed past, the practice is to come back deliberately to what is actually true and actually present right now. Often, what's actually present is far more manageable than what your mind has been simulating. This single shift, separating real difficulty from self-generated suffering, is one of the most practically useful things a person can learn. It does not eliminate hardship. It eliminates the unnecessary layer most people stack on top of hardship, the layer that exists purely in thought. Stop rehearsing pain that isn't currently happening. Stop importing old wounds into new moments. Stop comparing your real life to a fictional one. Most of what hurts you is something your own mind is choosing, often without your awareness, to keep producing. Truth number 5. You will die, and you do not know when. This is the hardest one, and also, strangely, the most useful. The Stoics talked about death constantly, not out of morbidity, but because they understood that a clear, honest relationship with your own mortality is one of the most clarifying forces available to a human being. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this thought, pushing it to the edges of consciousness, treating it as something that happens to other people, eventually, far away. That avoidance has a cost, and the cost is that people live as though they have unlimited time, which leads them to waste enormous amounts of it. Seneca wrote about this with real bluntness. He said that people are careful to protect their property and their money, but careless with the one truly irreplaceable resource they have, their time, because they don't believe it's actually running out. He said we act as though we'll live forever, and that this single false belief is responsible for more wasted years than almost anything else. Marcus Aurelius kept death close in his thinking, constantly, not to be grim, but as a tool, a way of cutting through trivial anxieties and forcing himself back to what actually mattered. He would remind himself that he could leave this life at any moment, and that this fact should shape every action and every word, not with fear, but with intention. If this could be your last conversation with someone, would you really spend it arguing about something petty? If this could be one of your final years of health and capability, would you really spend it scrolling, procrastinating, avoiding the things you actually want to build? This is harsh because nobody wants to think about their own death, and pointing at it directly can feel almost cruel. But here is the relief hiding inside: harshness. Once you actually accept, not in a passing, abstract way, but in a real, settled way, that your time is finite and the exact amount is unknown to you, your priorities sharpen immediately. The grudge you've been holding starts to look smaller. The risk you've been too afraid to take starts to look more urgent. The relationship you've been neglecting starts to matter more than the deadline you've been stressing over. The hobby, the apology, the conversation, the dream you keep postponing. Postponement only makes sense if you have unlimited time. You don't. This is not meant to create anxiety. The Stoics were explicit about this. The goal of contemplating death is not fear, it's clarity. It is meant to strip away the illusion that you can afford to wait, to coast, to stay comfortable indefinitely, to keep putting off the things that matter in favor of things that are merely urgent. When you actually internalize that your time is limited and unscheduled, you stop tolerating a life that's merely fine. You start asking harder questions about whether you're actually living the life you want or simply managing the one you've defaulted into. So, here is the practice. Don't avoid the thought of your own mortality. Let it sit with you, occasionally, deliberately. Use it the way Marcus Aurelius did, as a tool to return yourself to what actually matters. Whenever you catch yourself lost in something trivial, you will die. You do not know when. That fact, faced honestly, is not a tragedy to be avoided. It is the single sharpest tool you have for cutting through everything that doesn't matter and getting straight to the things that do. 5 truths. None of them comfortable. All of them true. Nobody is coming to save you, and that means your success is entirely in your own hands. Your feelings are not facts, and treating them as certainty has cost you more than you realize. Discipline never stops feeling difficult. The goal was never comfort. It was capability, despite discomfort. Most of your suffering is generated by your own mind, which means most of the relief available to you is internal too. And you will die at a time you do not know, which means the life you're postponing needs to start now. The Stoics never asked anyone to feel good about these truths. They asked people to act on them anyway. That's the whole philosophy, distilled into a single instruction. See clearly and act accordingly, regardless of how it feels. You've heard all 5 now. The only question left is what you do with the next 24 hours. Until next time, stay sharp.